Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast, produced in partnership with international medical charity Operation Smile. We're on a mission to create 100 new smiles through our partnership. If you're able to support this cause, please visit emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. In this episode, we speak to Andries Feikema, Global Director, Procurement, Digitalization and Transformation at DSM. We explore DSM's digitalization journey and the benefits it has brought to procurement and the wider organization.
So hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership as ever with our good friends over at Operation Smile. And today we're delighted to welcome Andries onto the show today. So hopefully you can still hear me okay.
Yes, I can hear you crystal clear.
Perfect. And I know that my colleague Rose has given a bit of an introduction to yourself, Andries, and the things we're going to run through today. But maybe before we start, where do we find you? I guess you're in the Netherlands today, are you?
That's correct, Paul. I'm based in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And I think obviously things are a bit easier now on the travel side now that we're getting back to some kind of normality after COVID. So do you find, are you traveling around much at the moment?
It's starting again, to be honest with you. A couple of years ago when we had the lockdown, it came to a complete stop. But the last couple of weeks I've been traveling.
Do you enjoy getting back on the plane and traveling again?
To a certain extent, yes. It's a very time-consuming, let's be honest, traveling, and it's not always the most ideal way to go from one point to another point. But it's good to be around with other people as well, and also to meet people. To share you one anecdote. 2 weeks ago, I met a person I hired more than a year ago for the first time, face to face, and it was very nice to see the people face to face again, and especially when you have to discuss more tough topics, and then it's good to look each other into the eyes rather than discussing it with a screen in between, so to say. Yeah,
no, that's it. It's and it's something we're going to talk about a little bit later on. The matters of recruitment and the changes in that area, because clearly over the COVID period, especially, there's a lot of people came on board without really meeting in person, and I suppose we'll only really find out how successful that has been over the next 12 to 18 months on the retention side of things. But certainly, it was a challenge that we all had to go through. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later on as well. And I guess to start the show off, we try to ease the guests into the podcast, and given that our podcast and our business does a lot of work with Operation Smile, the charity that help children born with cleft lip and palate. So I thought I'd ask you a question around smiles, really, and see what the last thing was that made you smile.
A lot of things. Personal, what made me smile in my private life is that my youngest daughter, who was studying for a nurse in Utrecht, was selected to her internship at one of the academic hospitals. Only 2 seats available, and she got one of them. So that made me very proud as a dad, of course, and that made me smile. And in work life, also what we made smile last year when we had successfully closed out a digital business transformation program for the indirect procurement after 3 years successfully was also something to be proud of, but it also made me smile.
No, it's good to hear. Two very different examples there. One home related and one work related, and again, something we'll touch on a bit later on both these subjects. But I suppose one of the things that we'll be talking about is all of the activity that you're involved in. Obviously, you've had a very successful career currently at DSM, and then you're doing a lot of work outside of DSM as well, with the keynote speaking and the lecturing that you've been doing for a number of years. And then obviously, you mentioned family there as well. So bringing up the family in the meantime as well. I mean, how do you fit this all in? You must be very good at your time management, I guess, huh?
One thing that has helped a lot, Paul, was the fact that I could work from home. It makes life a lot easier, let's be honest. So less traveling involved compared to prior to the pandemic. So I'm working from home in my home office. So that makes it easier to be around a lot more often. One other thing is that my youngest daughter is still living at our place at home, so that makes it easier as well. The oldest already moved out a couple of years ago, but of course, let's be honest, as a dad, family is my first priority. And if there's something to celebrate or something where you need to be involved in as a dad, it always has my first priority.
It's a good time to ask you a question on this, really. I mean, was there a part of you that now kind of enjoys the life we have now, in terms of the flexibility to work from home? Because, it's not that long ago that the majority of companies frowned on the idea, and it was quite difficult to even suggest that to companies or hiring managers that people should be allowed to work from home. So you enjoy it and you feel like you have more of a balance to your life now?
Oh, absolutely. It has a lot more balance in my life. If you compare my life prior to the pandemic, I was away most of the time. Now it's the complete opposite. So I'm much more a better work-life private balance today. The time that you normally spend on traveling, you can focus on your work, so you're more efficient, and I feel I can be more effective as well. But it's very personal, of course. One other thing is that you also realize that you spend a lot of time on the traveling that you cannot use for other things as well. Also for your private life as well. So if I compare to prior to the pandemic, I was also traveling a lot by car. Traffic is not the most exciting thing to be around because of all the traffic jams and the time-consuming activities involved. But no, I'm really enjoying it. However, I also must say that it's for me also important to meet the people in person as well, to sit with them face to face, having a coffee, a chit chat, and then dive into the topics you want to discuss. So you need to find the right balance, and that's different for everybody. At the beginning, I really enjoyed it to be at home very often, and now it's also time. You see, it's changing. People are going more into the office regularly, and that's what I'm enjoying as well.
No, it's good to hear. And you mentioned the words enjoying there quite a few times, and I guess you're only a few months away now from your 11th year at DSM. So I guess you're enjoying your time at DSM generally. I know you've had 3 interesting positions over this time, and currently in the Director of Procurement, Digitalization and Transformation. So really key role for the business in a hot topic as well. So I guess you've enjoyed your last 11 years at DSM, I guess. Huh?
Absolutely, never a dull moment, and a lot of challenges where I was involved in, a lot of opportunities offered as well. And of course, you also need to look for new opportunities yourself as well. It's not something you just sit and wait till something pops up. You need to be active in it yourself as well. So still enjoying, and also given the upcoming merger with Firmenich, which hopefully will be completed soon, also will bring new challenges and dynamics and opportunities for everybody in the DSM organization.
I mean, what does it feel like to be in your current role? Because you started off in regional procurement manager for EMEA, then moved into the Centre of Excellence in Digitalization, and now close to 4 years in the current role. So what does it feel like to be in this transformation and digitalization role?
I always was very passionate about, and still am passionate about, digitalization, because I strongly believe in the fact that if you want to grow towards a real world-class procurement organization, both with direct or indirect procurement, it doesn't matter, but becoming a world-class procurement organization, you also need to look at your digitalization. as a procurement organization. And it's quite a challenge, I can tell, because you're changing the organization to a certain extent. And I would always say it's not a tool implementation, it's a business transformation. You need to take the people by the hand and to guide them through the changes with a lot of change management and communication and training involved here as well. But if you want to make that step the next level of maturity, you need to digitalize your procurement organization. And why? Because a lot of procurement organizations or procurement professionals are still too much involved in operational activities, which are very time consuming, and that's not where they can contribute to the organization. And by digitalizing those processes, you will free them up from those activities, which can be automated or digitalized so that they can create value for the business in the end, or together with the business, I must say, of course. But that will help to grow a procurement organization.
I mean, because you've been involved in this since, June 2019 was when you were in started your previous role, which had obviously elements of the digital work involved at that time. But I mean, at that time, it was still quite in early days, whereas now I think most companies are prioritizing the digital and transformation work. But, what have you seen change over this time? So since maybe June 2019 to present day, have you seen a big change in the mindset of companies and people towards the digital way of working? And what are some of the takeaways you picked up from it over this period of time?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe one step back. As a procurement organization, DSM, we already started this whole digitalization journey back in 2013-14 for upstream source to contract digitalization. And what we have done is an extension of that and further matured our digital journey for the indirect procurement organization, which we are today doing for our direct procurement organization. When we started back in 2018 already with the design of the business case and, of course, to get the funding, the money for the budget for the whole digitalization journey. So what we basically have done is we have put in place the fundamentals for the digitalization as part of our digital roadmap. That's one thing. What I have seen changing is that digitalization is becoming more and more important for organizations. They see that they can optimize processes, but actually there's one thing that's more important, and that I hear very often at many organizations I do speak with, is that there's a need of information, and in order to get that information, you need to have the right data. And the only way to get the right and proper data is to have digitalized processes in order to get that information to build upon your sourcing strategies. Analytics is becoming very important for organizations from more to grow more towards more advanced and predictive analytics instead of prescriptive analytics. You see that is changing. You want to have more insights in risks, for example. Also, given the geopolitical situation we are in, supply chains are very challenging today in order to get your materials delivered on time in full for your organization, because you don't want to have any disruptions in your production process, for example. So you see those kind of functionalities are becoming more and more important, where in the past the focus was much more on the ordering system alone. Now organizations looking at end to end within the organization as a whole.
I mean, it is clear that you've got a strong passion for this. I mean, you mentioned it yourself earlier on, but I think it's clear on the work that you're doing within DSM and outside of DSM that it's something that you enjoy and have a big passion for. I mean, what do you see as the biggest challenges ahead in this area? Because I guess, it's something that, as I say, the majority of companies and people of seniority can see it's a big project that they want to get involved in, but what do you see as the biggest challenges over the next few years to getting maybe the ideas actually into practice?
The biggest challenge is, of course, getting the money. There's a lot of money needed to digitalize your procurement organization. It also depends, of course, what your ambition is. But those organizations who have digitalized, one of the things that's becoming more and more important is also cybersecurity. You also become more vulnerable for the outside world, towards the outside world as well. As an organization, you need to prepare yourself for that as well. More information, everything is connected all over the globe. So you also need to be very careful here as well. That's what I see. Of course, that's also what we focus at within DSM, how we have a very strong focus on cybersecurity as well, and also make people aware to be aware of those risks involved when you're digitalizing. And that's something that is really also on top of our list.
Hi everybody, it's Paul Thomas here. I hope that you're well and you're enjoying the podcast so far. Thank you once again for your continued support listening to the podcast. I just wanted to break into the recording to talk to you about a really exciting partnership that EMEA Recruitment has along with Operation Smile. And as founder of EMEA Recruitment, it's an honour and a privilege to announce this partnership. Personally, I was born with a cleft lip and palate, so the mission of Operation Smile is something that I have a strong personal connection with. It's not an understatement to say that the dentists and surgeons that helped me were life changers. It's not only about the actual operations that take place, the support and care post and pre-operation are beyond value, and from personal experience I can only say that I'd not be the confident, happy person I am today without this support. I want to help children experience the support and care and skill that I experienced on my journey, and hope that we can do this along with Operation Smile. Every 3 minutes, a child is born with a cleft lip or cleft palate, and the mission of Operation Smile is to provide help and support to these children through providing 6,000 medical volunteers across 80 countries who are dedicated to help these children with facial conditions, most commonly cleft lip and cleft palate. More than 200,000 children are born with a cleft every year, and they are often unable to speak, eat, socialise or even smile. However, it can take as little as 45 minutes and cost just €180 or 182 francs for Operation Smile to provide a child with life-changing surgery. Now, in partnership with Operation Smile, EMEA Recruitment is raising valuable funds and aiming to create 100 new smiles to support the organisation to provide free surgeries for children and young adults all over the world. Please help us by donating through the link in the bio or get in touch to see how your company can help get involved too. For the moment, I'll leave you to carry on listening to the rest of the podcast, but if there's anything I can do in terms of answering any questions or finding out how you can help and support EMEA Recruitment and Operation Smile, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you once again and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
I mean, do you think, because obviously the role that you're doing and that other people are doing in similar positions, I mean, you've obviously got to be somebody who's very strong at dealing with all sorts of people, different levels of seniority, different disciplines, and, you know, managing a change process, because, you know, the majority of people are afraid of change. You know, they'd rather keep hold of what they have than to risk changing something and it going wrong, you know. So I mean, do you think from a personality perspective, when you look at your characteristics, are there certain elements of your characteristics that you feel really have helped you in this role, and you feel are vital, you know, to have this type of position that you have?
Be open-minded and be open for change and open for feedback and open for ideas from others as well. And don't think that things invented here in the Netherlands fits all over the globe, because that's not true. You need to be very organizational sensitive, people sensitive, culture sensitive. Those things are really important to be successful in such a role. You need to speak with a lot of the stakeholders involved. You need to speak with the users, the future users of your system, because people rather work with a crappy system than that they move to a new environment that is not working properly, for example. So you really need to put a lot of time and effort in your change management, your communication, your training, just to make sure that the message comes across. What is going to change? Why is it going to change? How is it going to change? When? How will they be affected? How can they benefit from it? But also, how can they help the team to make it a huge success, for example? But especially that open-mindedness is very important to be successful in such a role.
I mean, and I know that you follow Simon Sinek on LinkedIn, and I can see a few posts you've done recently where you've mentioned some of your work has come back to starting with why. So is that being the centerpiece of change? I mean, is that something that you work closely with as well? I guess with people who say, well, we want to move, we want to change this, we want to do X, Y, Z. But really focusing on why it's being done and how it benefits people.
Oh, absolutely. One of the key question is always, why do we want to do this? And how that is later is something that will come later. The why and the what are the most important questions to ask first. What I see in many organizations, unfortunately, is that there's still no clear vision of what they want to achieve. What do they want to achieve? Why? Because what is the, I would not say the burning platform, but what are the strategic drivers of your digitalization journey? And if you do not have that clear as an organization, then it will be very difficult to be successful with the digital transformation. You need to have that North Star, that dot on the horizon. And I know those are buzzwords, but you need to have a clear direction for yourself as an organization. And if you don't have that, and you cannot explain why you're doing it, then it will be very difficult to make the change within the organization, because otherwise it's another IT project, for example. That's something you need to prevent. People need to understand, why are we doing this? And of course, the what, the solution, and those kind of things, will come later. But it's really important that is clear for everybody involved.
I mean, I thought it'd be quite good to link this into your own career, really, and ask you, why you ended up in the procurement discipline in the first place. I mean, some people, they get to move into a career because it's a passion and driver and what they've always wanted to do. But actually, most people end up falling into a career, and then it obviously shapes the next 30, 40, 50 years of their life, So was there a particular reason why you ended up doing procurement in the first place?
Oh, I can tell. It's a long time ago, Paul. It's over 20 years ago. No, I did a traineeship at the bank at that time. One of the things I did was also an assignment in procurement. And I always say at that time, I met the right people at the right moment. Also came in connection with the Dutch equivalent of SIPS in the UK, so that's the Dutch Association of Procurement Supply Chain Management, NAVI. And also that was also the moment that I started lecturing for them as well, the different subjects of the many courses they offer today. But I was very passionate about it. And the reason why is because procurement touches so many disciplines within the organization. And if you're a curious person, then you definitely need to step into procurement, because you learn so much and you see so much of your own organization, where you can bring value or where you can bring benefits to the entire organization. So, and right from that moment, I thought, okay, this is a very interesting area to continue my career. And actually always had the luck that I got new opportunities. So there was never a dull moment for me to say, okay, I have to step out here and I need to look for something else. Actually, my role has evolved significantly. Also have from real traditional procurement, what I've done, running procurement projects in category management, name it, into completely the digital transformation. And I've had the luck to be involved in many disciplines of the procurement profession, which has helped me to learn a lot about procurement, where I now can benefit from in my current role.
No, and it's good to hear this this story about your journey, because I think, when we've had other procurement specialists on the podcast, there's a general concern about the younger generation choosing procurement or supply chain as a career. I think obviously a lot of the younger generation are attracted to the areas of IT or BI and data, but the reality is that, as you've mentioned here, a career in procurement you can learn a lot from it. You can have exposure to a whole range of different people and disciplines in the organization. You can travel the world, and with a curious mind, you can have a great career really by choosing procurement. Is the message there, I think.
Absolutely. And also what you see is that I know from a long time ago, the general discussion was also, okay, when do we have a seat at the table of the board as a procurement? Probably those discussions will still take place at certain organizations, I'm sure, but we can see also many organizations are having now a CPO being part of that board, having a seat at the table, so they can make that impact on the organization. So there's not a good career path for the younger people to grow in procurement in different levels, but also, and not only being a specialist, but also more from a managerial perspective or leadership perspective.
No, it's true. There's you mentioned there, you see a lot more organizations now having the CPO in a business. In the last 10, 15 years, you see this a lot. So you can see actually there is the career progression is there to get to that point where you have a seat at the table, as you say, with the key decision makers. And I think this has, helps a lot, and I think, stories like yourself, are always really inspirational for anybody to hear who's thinking about a career in procurement, because anybody who wants to, as I say, see the world and have a broad and varied career, procurement can offer that if you go into it with the right mindset, but I think obviously linked to this is a question I was going to ask you related to recruitment, really, because it would feel strange having you as a guest on a recruitment podcast, without asking you a recruitment related question, because I think obviously we talked about the changing nature of the procurement discipline, so I thought I'd ask you really how you feel, or what you feel are the key steps you need to have a process that's focused on getting the right people in. Is there any advice you can give to the network about having the right recruitment process to get the right people in procurement?
That's where it starts. I think one of the things that's very important before starting the whole recruitment, what are you looking for as an organization? Of course, what kind of profiles, what kind of people do you need? And of course, what kind and then the process, for sure. One of the things I think is the most challenging part today, and you hear a lot of people speaking about it, is about the war of talent, to find the right people. I think the processes are less, for me, I think less relevant when you have a good HR department, professional HR department who can help you, support you here with. For me, it's more important to find the right people, and that's more challenging today, given the fact that it takes a lot of time to find the right people, because the talents available in the market can pick their opportunities, so to say. We're not the only one looking for the best talents to join our procurement forces, of course. So you need to be, also as a procurement organization, need to be very mature so you can offer. And that's also what I see also in relation to the whole digitalization journey. We haven't spoken about it yet, but one of the things what I want to mention is very important. Even though you're digitalizing your procurement processes, you need to be aware that it has an effect on your people. So you see that skill sets are changing. So you need to have different type of profiles for your organization that can help you to grow towards the future. Also, your organizational model is changing, different organizational models. So the traditional procurement setups is changing because a lot is being automated as well. including technology, the digital roadmap and processes, all the connections across the organization. But coming back to the first point on the people, which is you need to be aware of what you really need for your organization, and it needs to fit into your aspirations as an organization. Where do we want to grow towards them? Coming back to the North Star, what is your vision, and what kind of people do you need? If I look to DSM, for example, it's a very mature and very professional procurement organization, both direct and indirect procurement. So also the profiles we have are real professionals, very experienced procurement professionals who really know what procurement is about, who really understand how to connect with the business, who really understand how to make the difference within the organization, and to, in the end, let's not forget, to create that value. And that's really important also to understand before you even you start the whole recruitment process. What is your aspiration? What is the profile what you're looking for? Of course, fully supported by your HR department or external parties.
No, I think it's very true. I mean, I think the clearer you can be at the start, then the easier the process becomes. I mean, it's not as you mentioned, it's not easy. You know, I think there's a lot of companies looking for the same types of profiles, but I think you know, with the good thing with DSM is that they have a track record of really recruiting great people, but also retaining great people as well, you know, such as yourself. But there's a number of other individuals who've had, you know, very long careers within the business, which is something that I know a lot of companies are quite envious of, really, you know, on that side, you know. So it's a good, DSM has themselves in a good position, you know, as far as that is concerned, really, I think. I mean, I think obviously, you know, we've talked about digitalization and the changing profiles and needs around that. But one of the things, you know, linked to this is BI and data. You mentioned it yourself as well. I mean, how do you feel that the whole process of BI and data is going to change the procurement function in the future?
Absolutely. You as already mentioned, also analytics is becoming more and more important for an organizations as a whole, not only procurement, but organizations as a whole. That's what you see changing within procurement as well. But it also links to the procurement professionals as well. So they need to be able to process the data, to understand the data, and also use the data and apply it to sourcing strategies or discussions with their stakeholders, etc. It's becoming more and more important. The role is changing, procurement is changing. As said at the start of this conversation, you see a lot of the operational activities are being automated, digitalized, even in the tactical area of procurement. You see that. So the data part is becoming more and more important for the procurement function as a whole.
And do you think, obviously, with these changes, I mean, it's you know, for people looking to get into the discipline now, I mean, it's obviously a very different skill sets that is needed to the one from 10 or 15 years ago, you know. So I suppose aligned with what you've been saying in the conversation so far, people who are wanting to either get into the discipline or to develop the key things they need to be looking at are, you know, how they can become a better, stronger business partner, how they need to make sure they're keeping their finger on the pulse when it comes to digital AI and BI and data, and that's the kind of profile now that's going to succeed in the procurement world, which is a different kind of profile to that of 10 or 15 years ago.
Absolutely. And that's all why I always say, okay, it's not a tool implementation, it's a business transformation, because it affects the people and the organization part as well. And you see skill sets are changing. Of course, analytical skills is becoming very, very important as being procurement professional, but also conceptual thinking skills are needed, advisory skills. How do you communicate with your stakeholders and your supplier network, of course? This is becoming more and more important, being an entrepreneur as well. It's not just, okay, we ask, you perform. It's a collaboration with the business. It's collaboration with your suppliers as well. So that ask for different skills, and that's a complete difference when you compare it with 15 years ago. The procurement professional, that has completely changed, and it will change even more. Even though the digitalization is accelerating, it's still enabling. But it means that also procurement professional is changing as well. And that's also what you see when you recruit new people. You want to have the future leaders also those kind of competences, digital savviness, and on being an entrepreneur, analytical skills, consultancy skills, those kind of things that are becoming more and more important for procurement professional to, I would not say survive, but to be successful in the future.
You mentioned the consultancy skills and the people skills, really. You mentioned a few times in the conversation. And I mean, obviously, over your career, you've worked across the world, really, over this time. And I was wondering, how you feel that's helped you as a leader. I mean, does this link to this point you're making there about, being more, you've become more culturally aware and more, you're more able to deal with people across a whole range of disciplines and backgrounds because of your travel, or is there other areas you feel this has helped you as a leader?
Oh, absolutely. You get so many insights from different cultures, how people think, how people live, how people behave. Very important to understand, to be aware of, and in order to be successful as a leader. Absolutely. I had the luck to travel to many countries and many continents across the globe, but also given my personal background, studied in the UK, international family, also has helped a lot to be aware of this. And it's something what I see with people who do not have that experience, do step in the same pitfall, or not same pitfall, do step in the pitfall because they think, okay, it's let's look at it with some Dutch glasses on, but that's not the world. The world is so completely different. The world is so diverse. You need to be aware of that in order to be successful.
Do you think, obviously, because the world is becoming a smaller place now, I think you spoke about it earlier, you can obviously get on the team or Zoom's call with somebody from anywhere around the world now, and you could even hire someone from anywhere around the world without necessarily meeting them. But a bit of the challenge is that, it doesn't encourage people to travel and get out there, so whilst they could say I've worked in the country, but you can say you worked in the country without leaving your living room sometimes these days. So, but actually being there, getting out and putting yourself in these kind of situations, living the life of a native in a certain country, it's a different kind of learning experience, but it's one that probably a lot of people are less willing to have now, because they know that they can maybe have an easier life if they do everything remotely, and maybe that's a bit of the challenge behind the way we're living at the moment.
Yeah, I also have to think about the people. I say, okay, you can do a lot virtually. That's completely true. However, tough discussions or negotiations, business discussions, you're much more successful when you sit face to face. In certain countries, the deal is closed not during the meeting, but after the meeting. Different environment, different situation, different setting as well. That's what I've experienced in the past myself as well. And today, a lot's being done virtually, but if it has always been very successful, a question mark. I think if you sit together face to face with the people, as mentioned in tough discussions or negotiations or particular topics that you need to discuss, you're more successful and effective when you're sitting face to face, because you can look each other in the eyes, you see how people behave, but also to understand what the real issue is. Something people do not always show when they are on a screen. for example. But as I said, I have experienced myself in the past when you do business in certain continents across the globe. We're not all Dutch, eating a sandwich, drinking a glass of milk, and we close the deal. I just make a joke, but in other countries, you have a proper dinner and you discuss first other things before you dive into the real content, and then close the deal, or come to an agreement, how to solve an issue or get support, name it. So this is so important, really important. And I'm glad that we can go back to a certain extent. You always need to find the right balance here, of course, but face-to-face is much more effective still.
And I think this is where you find that it's easier to inspire other people when you're sitting opposite them in person, or to be inspired yourself by the people that you're with in person. And I was going to ask you, obviously from the wide-ranging career that you've had, is there anyone that jumps out who's really inspired you the most in your career?
Well, a few people really have inspired me. To start with, when I did my traineeship in procurement, was a person. He was already retired a long time ago, but he was very passionate about the function itself, or the discipline procurement. And he really inspires me. But some years later, I met a person. He was a CPO for a huge oil company and decided to be self-employed and to do on an interim basis CPO kind of roles. And I had the opportunity to work with that person, and he really inspired me as well, but more from a leadership perspective and how to be successful to make a change as a procurement organization, or to change the procurement organization to make the difference in an organization. There's several people I have met in the last years who have inspired me. And actually, everybody to a certain extent inspired me, because it also depends on the situation you're in. And maybe the one has more impact than the other, of course. But there are a few who really did to me as well.
No, and it's great to see. Obviously, we've talked about the people that have inspired yourself, but obviously with the keynote speaking and the teaching and mentoring that you're doing now, obviously you're trying to inspire people yourself and pass that back into the markets and into the marketplace and into the disciplines. So I know you're doing a lot of work on the keynote speaking circuits, so it's what really kind of drove you in that direction? Because I know keynote speaking is something that I think a large majority of people would lose a lot of sleep over, standing up and giving presentations in front of people, and it's not everybody's it's pushing most people out of their comfort zone, I would say. So what inspired you to start this direction?
My first thing is I like to talk. I'm not afraid to stand in front of a large audience and try to bring my message across. Now, one of the things is what I do, I believe in. I strongly believe in. I'm very passionate about the digitalization, transformation in procurement. So, and that's what I want to share with the people who come to listen to me. I want to inspire them. I want to marvel them. But actually, I want to trigger them to create that awareness. Hey, if we want to make a difference, this is something we need to do as well. And because I'm very passionate about it, I don't feel any. I am not scared to step on the stage and to start speaking in front of an audience because I know what I'm talking about. I know the topics. I know what I want to bring across. So I don't have to sleep over it, to be honest with you, Paul. I really enjoy doing that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good. As you say, it's a way to bring the knowledge to the markets. A lot of people learn things from this, and and it's obviously a very hot topic at the moment as well. And I think you have some events coming up, don't you? I know there's something in May in Amsterdam. You're presenting about digital transformation on the 10th of May.
Yeah, absolutely. That there are a few summits, roundtables been asked for to host or to bring in the case study of DSM, the digital business transformation. as an example. So if you're coming up, looking forward to that as well, Paul. Always nice to meet other people facing similar issues or challenges that we had in the past as well, to share that knowledge and experience, because that's what it's all about, building the network and to help each other in the end. But indeed, a lot of coming up in the coming months.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good to hear, and it's great that you've got the ability now to go and do these things where we can meet in person again. And I think one thing that really jumps out from the conversation is the passion that you have for the subjects. I mean, you just mentioned it there, that you're happy to stand up in front of a crowd and people and talk about this because the subject really, really well, but probably most importantly, it's something you enjoy and it's something you got the passion for, and I think, clearly because of that, anyone who attends these events are going to take a lot from it, and hopefully they give a lot as well, and everybody takes something from these events that you have in the past and things you have coming up, so it's it's been, and from that point of view, it's been excellent to speak to you today. I've really taken a lot from the conversation. I know that the network will as well, so I really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. Obviously, what we'll do when we put the podcast out on social media, we'll make sure we put a link to your name, so anyone wanting to connect about your future events, it makes it easy for them to connect with you. And just to say a huge thank you for your time today, Andries. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. More than a pleasure, Paul, and also my reach to the audience is to, if they want to learn more about the digital business transformation and the experiences, the pitfalls, the drawbacks as well. It's not always sunshine. Of course, there are a lot of challenges involved there as well. Please feel free to reach out. More than willing to share those.
Perfect. No, thank you very much, Andries. We'll keep in touch, and really a great pleasure speaking to you today.
Likewise. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you'd like to reach out to Paul or myself, please feel free to send a connection through on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to listen to previous episodes of the podcast, you can find them all at our website, www.emearecruitment.eu.